With a single major third and just 4 notes, Ludwig van Beethoven made music history. How is it possible that the simplest of motifs can create such a compelling pull and fascinate us more than even the most subtle, artful melodies? We'll show you how Beethoven uses such an extremely simple motif in his easiest piano sonata, and takes such delight in it that he reuses it in a slightly more sophisticated arrangement in a septet. And you'll learn how Miles Davis slows down the same motif to a cool jazz tempo. Finally, we'll give you a few tips on how to use Beethoven's flash of inspiration to develop your own clever classical improvisations. Beethoven's Sonata, Opus 49, No. 2 is technically so simple that even less virtuosic pianists can play it sight read more or less without difficulty. What's also striking, there are no indications of dynamics or articulation. This is very unusual for Beethoven. Usually, he loves to work against the symmetries of the musical text with complex dynamic markings, thereby creating fascinating tensions between the music's structure and its expression. None of that is present in this 2-movement sonata. The motif of the second movement takes this reduction to the extreme. Over a dominant tonic progression, only an accented leading tone-tonic alternation and a tonic arpeggio pulse. The driving accompaniment places the accent in the gaps of the melody. This reveals a compositional model that seems universal. How do I generate energy and tension with very few, intertwined elements? Unlike in vocal lines, the focus here is not on melismas and nuances, but on pulsation and interplay. In popular music today, there is one style in particular that does this. In the Cuban son and in salsa, the simplest, static motifs with a straightforward dominant tonic or 2/5 structure are shaped in this way. Alongside the bass tumbao, this role is taken on by the so-called mundunos. They create a captivating, swinging internal tension. One could imagine something similar for Beethoven's minuet. Something like this? The challenge is a bit greater because a minuet is in 3/4 time. As simple as the minuet's motif may be, Beethoven apparently found it so inspiring that he reused it, specifically in a chamber music setting, a septet. This is a perfect opportunity to do a mini-study on orchestration. How do you use such sparse material to breathe life into a nuanced ensemble that would otherwise demand more? In the piano part, we essentially have only 3 layers: the melody, an accompanying figure in the middle register, and a bass line. In the chamber music version, however, we have not just 3 but 7 instruments: clarinet, bassoon, horn, violin, viola, cello, and double bass. So what should we do? Should we have the woodwinds play the melody in unison, the violin and viola play the middle voice, and the cello and double bass play the bass? That would make the whole thing sound bloated and pompous. It seems we need to enrich the material to achieve a good balance between musical differentiation and sonic potential. In fact, Beethoven's orchestration starts out as simple as the piano part. The trick? Simply don't use all the instruments at first. The 3 layers we've identified are distributed among the strings: the melody for the violin, the middle voice for the viola, and the bass, in fact, played in unison with the cello and double bass. In the second part, however, the roles are already distributed differently. Structures are added that are not found in the piano part. The clarinet and bassoon contribute a counter melody, and the horn provides a typical horn closing phrase. and the strings swap roles. The cello takes over the middle voice, the double bass handles the bass part alone, and the violin and viola briefly take on the melody in unison before the structure is rearranged once more in the bar before the final note. In this way, Beethoven strikes a balance between the density of the material and the much more nuanced chamber music sound options available compared to the piano. The simpler structures are, the more similar they seem to be across all cultures. This also applies to this minuet by Beethoven. Its basic form is reflected and transformed in the 20th century in a magnificent work by the jazz trumpeter Miles Davis. We'll get to the nature of the inner affinity between Beethoven and Davis in a moment. But first, let's take a brief look at the historical context in which Beethoven's sonata was composed. The sonata's relatively high opus number is misleading. It stems from its late publication. It was one of the first sonatas written by Beethoven, who was about 25 years old at the time. After failing to secure Mozart as his teacher, he had taken lessons from Joseph Haydn, from whom, as he himself claimed, he learned nothing. It is possible that the rather self-assured young Beethoven was simply offended that Haydn had judged some of his works, especially a piano trio, rather critically. He apparently found this incomprehensible. The minuet of the 20th Piano Sonata can confidently be classified within Haydn's compositional tradition. At that time, Beethoven was not yet struggling with hearing loss. He had just settled permanently in Vienna and was initially making a name for himself as a piano virtuoso. He may have written the sonatas, Opus 49, for his female piano students. The French had occupied Beethoven's homeland, the Rhineland. The Rhineland ruler, who had been paying Beethoven a salary until then, was forced to flee and cease his payments. Beethoven was therefore dependent on income from teaching. The jazz trumpeter and composer Miles Davis had one thing in common with Beethoven. He created extremely popular, brilliant melodies whose simplicity is almost unmatched. Think above all of his album Kind of Blue and from it, So What, Blue and Green, and especially All Blues, which comes across as a modern, cool-toned version of the model Beethoven had devised in the minuet of his Piano Sonata No. 20. Just try connecting Beethoven's melody with Paul Chambers' bass line. Or Beethoven's texture in the mid-range with Bill Evans' piano tremolo. The main feature of the model seems to be the oscillating upbeat figure, which appears to lay down a kind of rhythm carpet upon which the melody can then take flight. In a collective setting, one can layer such motif chains on top of one another to create a rhythmically pulsating, finely structured soundscape over which a soloist, like Miles Davis, can then unfold with a contrasting, drawn-out vocal line. Thanks to the extremely simple harmonic structure of the accompaniment, one can then draw on interesting modal scales for improvisation, which can certainly establish a kind of bitonality. This is, after all, one of the techniques that made modal improvisation so appealing after Kind of Blue. Details about Beethoven's minuet and these improvisation techniques can be found in a PDF available for download from the Academia l'Art website. A link to it can be found in the comments section of this video. If you'd like to learn more about the fundamentals of our philosophy of music making, you should definitely watch this video in its entirety. Robert Schumann also managed to create a global hit from an extremely simple model. It bears a striking resemblance to one of the most famous jazz standards. You'll learn more about it in this video.